Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple. Germany's finest faced off in the Premier League as Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool hosted Thomas Tuchel's Chelsea. This was a crucial fixture in the race for the top four, with both clubs still in with a strong shout. And in the end, the game ended 1-0 to Chelsea thanks to a moment of magic from Mason Mount. The XG suggested it was a deserved win, 1.23 to 0.25. The XG time map shows that from early on, Liverpool struggled to keep up with the Blues. But what tactics did both managers use? Let's take a look. And here's how both sides lined up, courtesy of the OneFootball app, with both managers sticking to their preferred formations. To get stats, lineups, and more for your favorite teams and players, check out the OneFootball app, who are sponsoring this video. They've been supporting Football Made Simple for a while now, so if you want to get the best football app for free while supporting the channel, check out the link in the description below. And if you want a dedicated detailed look at either manager's tactics this season, check out these videos linked at the end. Now, let's start with what Liverpool looked to do on the ball before moving on to Tuchel's men. Liverpool primarily looked to build up short, and in fact, they had the majority of the ball with 54% possession. Both centre-backs would drop into the box, and although Chelsea positioned themselves higher, with Ziyech tucking in, they wouldn't be drawn into the press, as this would create space in behind. As a result of this shape, Liverpool's fullbacks were often free in this first phase. We saw some similarities in open play. When out of possession, Chelsea shaped up in a 5-3-2, with Mount dropping into the left central midfield position, whilst Hakim Ziyech was the second forward. This is because if Mount stayed higher up, Chelsea would be heavily overloaded in the midfield if they only had double pivots, especially as Firmino also often looked to drop deep. Now instead, when the ball did enter the midfield, both Mount and Kanté were keen pressers, knowing that they had cover in behind them. And initially, to deal with the two men pressing their centre-backs, Trent tended to stay deeper, with the onus being on Robertson to push higher up, as Salah was looking to remain wide, with Mane instead tucking into the half space, which did cause danger at times. However, as the game progressed and Liverpool looked to show more attack and threat, Trent moved higher up as a traditional fullback. And both Reece James and Chilwell were crucial in these phases, as with an extremely narrow high defense, as soon as the ball went wide to the fullback, they sprung forward to press and looked to slow down progression, as the Chelsea back five could easily become a 4 due to the flexibility of their personnel. Liverpool did at times look to exploit this, trying to get Salah to run in behind against Rudiger. Down the right is where they tended to attack, with Salah often looking to tuck into the half space, and with Trent and Thiago or Jones high, they could form a wide triangle to try and overload Chelsea. However, the presence of the third centre-back meant the half space was well protected in these phases. But Liverpool choosing to build up in a 2 with a high line and pushing Trent high meant they were constantly in danger on the transition. We saw Ziyech and Werner consistently threatening in behind centrally, whilst Mount would be quick to spring forward from midfield to support. This is what leads to Mount's goal. There is a turnover high up and the ball breaks to Kanté. And throughout the match, Kanté was excellent in transition, and he plays in Mount, who is in space due to Trent having been high. Fabinho has to cover across, and Mount cuts in and scores well. But what did Chelsea look to do in more controlled phases? Chelsea also generally looked to build up short initially, and in open play down the right, they had interesting mechanisms. Liverpool generally looked to press high with a high line, and ended with a passes per defensive action of just under 12. But rather than press 3 versus 3 against the centre backs, Firmino tended to pick up the pivots in midfield for reasons we previously discussed in our detailed video on Klopp's tactics. As a result, it meant Salah and Mane would press fairly narrow, so when the ball went to Azpilicueta, it tended to be Jones who was drawn up from midfield to press. This meant Reece James could receive in space to progress. However, if Robertson pushed high to press, the now free pivot could then play in Ziyech, who would move wide. But the left is where most of Chelsea's play came. In possession, Chelsea were nominally in a 3-4-3, and when the ball was played into one of their pivots, a Liverpool midfielder was often drawn into the press. However, due to Salah offering next to nothing defensively, Chilwell was free to move high early on to provide the width. So, Mount would often be in the half space and then drift into the space between the lines to look to receive and play others in. As if Trent followed, Chilwell would be free, and the centre-backs couldn't follow as they were tied up. We see shades of this in Werner's disallowed goal. Jorginho gets on the ball, and we see Firmino has to pick up both pivots initially. Mount higher up drifts between the lines, and we see Trent and Wijnaldum are unsure of who picks him up. And Trent moving higher leaves space in the right back zone, and we also see Liverpool's high line. Werner makes the run into the space and scores, but he is ruled out for offside. We did see Liverpool eventually adapt, with Firmino picking up one pivot and Jones picking up another, so that they matched Chelsea man for man in midfield. Overall, Tuchel will be delighted by a dominant win, where they may not have created chance after chance, but were in control throughout the 90. Klopp on the other hand will be worried, with their top 4 position being heavily under threat, meaning they may have to go all the way in the Champions League to take part again next season. But what did you make of the match? Drop it down below. A quick shout out to my Patreons for helping to make this video possible. If you want to support, head on over to patreon.com/footballmadesimple and you'll get rewards like early access to videos and exclusive content. And a massive thanks to Nicholas Nilsson, Nate Wathen, Terence Kennel and Jack Brain for helping to support FMS on Patreon. But that's all for today, and remember, keep it simple.